your socks! Hey!
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Now streaming on all major podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast as giving a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today, well, you get me, and I'm going to be the Krusty Master Gunny, and we're going to talk about leadership and things that I've learned over my 25-year career. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? And make sure you go to the website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check us out, see what we're all about. There's all kinds of good stuff on that website. There is a place that you can go in and buy some merchandise. You can also go if you want to become a patron and do a monthly donation, or you can do a one-time donation. But anything that you either purchased or gift to us would be much appreciated, and we would be able to get our veteran voices out for all to hear just a little bit easier. Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. All right, a big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Till Valhalla Project, and I'm going to read their mission statement. This is from their website. It says, "Our mission is to honor fallen military and first responders by surprise delivering memorials to their families, funded by apparel that motivates, pays tribute, and raises awareness, all while actively donating to reduce veteran suicide." So this group is an incredible group. If you don't know anything about them, go to their website, tillvalhallaproject.com. Go check them out. They have all kinds of apparel. They got shirts, they got hats, they got everything. But go check them out. And everything that you purchase from them is going to help, with veteran suicide. To prevent veteran suicide is the big thing. And that's one of the reasons that I definitely wanted to partner with them. And I thank them for letting me be an ambassador for them. But an amazing organization. So please go check them out. I've got my cat jumping on my lap here while I'm recording, but that's okay. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was the Marine Corps League. And the Marine Corps League, of course, I'm an ambassador for them as well. But of course, this one is near and dear to my heart because, well, hey, I'm a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Semper Fi, all that other good stuff. But to become one of the few and the proud United States Marine, man, you had to go through some stuff. And we as veterans, we've been through it, and we are Marines no matter what. So I got to be honest, man, that it's a great organization. And if you can help them out, they're trying to get their money up. Not money. I said money. They're trying to get their numbers up in the actual organization. I'm going to look them up real quick. I'm sorry, I had it up earlier and it came off. Marine Corps League. Here we go. Okay, so it's a great organization. They're trying to get their numbers up. So their numbers are down a little bit, which, okay, that's fine. But I want to read their mission statement that they have on their website. And hopefully it will inspire you to get involved with that organization and try to help them out. All right. The mission of the Marine Corps League is to promote the interests and to preserve traditions of the United States Marine Corps, strengthen the fraternity of Marines and their families, serve Marines and FMF Navy personnel who wear or who have worn the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, and foster the ideals of Americanism and patriotic volunteerism. So I don't know about you, but man, that totally motivates me. And, I'm excited to be a life member of the Marine Corps League. So I encourage you, go out there. They have, there is an organization close to you. Go on their website. There's a chapter where you can go in and locate where the different chapters are. And then there'll be one close to you, and then you can join in that organization, or you can join as a member at large, which is actually what I did, because I don't really have one place that I'm staying at right now. So I joined as a member at large, which is fantastic. But joining anyway is good. But get out there, volunteer with them, go out there and help. They're out there doing some amazing things, helping push veteran causes and helping to strengthen the Marine Corps. But they're out there with Congress. They're out there going around and doing things. Man, I had no idea some of the stuff that they were doing, but it truly is an amazing organization. So if you can go check them out, please go check them out. If you're a Marine, man, you have to join up, be part of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. Anyway, I came up with that. It's in one of my little promos. But yeah, I really honestly think that every Marine should be a part of the Marine Corps League. If we could get all the Marines that are, veterans out there to join the Marine Corps League, just think how unstoppable that organization could be. And there are Marines out there in every walk of life, doing all kinds of different things, positive across the board. I mean, we highlight as many as we can on here, but there's way, way, way more than I can highlight, probably in a lifetime, to be honest with you. But yeah, go out there, help them out, join the league. It's not that expensive or anything, but join up and get that camaraderie back, get that motivation back that you had while you were in, and things will get better. I got my dogs, I got my cat, I got everybody wanting to say hi to me at one time because I'm in here talking, but that's okay. We're going to continue on. All right, I talked about the Till Valhalla project. I talked about the Marine Corps League, and I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to be changing up how I title the different podcasts. I think maybe people are getting confused because when you look at it, especially on a phone, you look at it, it says My Veteran Story, and then it says My Veteran Story, and then it says Fireside Chat, but it doesn't, like, you don't see who is on there, what it's about. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to put the number of the podcast. So for example, this one's going to be 340. So I'll put number 340 and then dash and then who it's about. So it'd be me, my name, right? And then a little snippet of what it's about. But if I do this, it'll be easier to see, and people will be able to go ahead and click faster and find the person that they're wanting to listen to. Because I'll be honest, doing this podcast, and I love doing this podcast. I love hearing people's stories and things like that. But a lot of times, maybe there are people, I've interviewed people that, they're not super popular and they don't have lots and lots of followers and stuff. I mean, I have more followers than I'd say the average person maybe, but it sometimes it's not about how many views you get or how many downloads you get on each podcast. But for me, the important thing is being able to get that individual story out so their family, their friends, those that are close to them can go and listen to their story in their own words, and maybe they will have a better understanding of what that individual has gone through. Maybe it will open up some doors for them with their family, with their friends. But you never know what something may come of that. So that's one of the best things about it, in my opinion. And I'm not looking to get giant numbers and all that stuff. I mean, would it be great? Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. We'd all love to have Joe Rogan podcast numbers. Sure. Of course. But the reality is I'm not going to have that, and that's okay. But we are getting lots of veteran stories out. And I'm excited about that. And this year we're doing 3 veteran stories a week. So that's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with the exception of this week because I'm putting this podcast up. But usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have a veteran story. And then on Tuesdays, I have the fireside chat with the crew. That's the regular crew that comes on, and we just kind of talk about veteran news and, current topics, those types of things, and try to apply it to the veteran community. And then on Thursdays, I have the fireside chat with special guests. So it just depends. I've had some, country music artists on. I've had different individuals that own businesses. I've had different individuals from different veteran organizations on to talk about those veteran organizations. So it's just my way of being able to give back and try to highlight all the great things that the veteran community is doing out there. So that's what I'm going to do moving forward. I really do love this podcast, and I love doing it. And if you're out there, you're a veteran, don't hesitate. Reach out, shoot me an email, shoot me a message, and we're going to figure out a way to get you on here so we can hear your story, because your story is important. It doesn't matter if you served 2 years. It doesn't matter if you served 30 plus years. Your story is important, and I want everybody to be able to hear that story and it be there for future generations. All right, with that, I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of what it was that I was going to talk about today. So I spent 25 years in the Marine Corps, made it all the way up to Master Gunny. That's E9 for those that are in different services in the Marine Corps and didn't know, but Master Gunny. And, I've learned a couple of things along the way. And so these are what I call the Krusty Master Gunny, right? That was me when I was in. I was the Krusty, the old guy, right? The gray beard now. But the Krusty Master Gunny. And these are just some leadership things that I learned along my 25-year journey in the Marine Corps. So the very first thing that I'm going to talk about, the number one thing, and I think you have to have this in order for everything else to fall in place. And the big thing is, it's titled Genuinely Care. You have to genuinely care about the Marines, about your soldiers, about your airmen, everything. You got to actually care about the individuals that you work for. Because you work for those guys that are underneath you, right? And you have to know what they're thinking. You have to know what they're going through in order to best help them. And a lot of times, when we're talking leadership, a lot of times it's not leadership. It's more being a or not even a mentor. What am I trying to say here? A manager, right? A manager and is different. A manager is just making sure that things are getting done. There's no personality in it. It's just, hey, listen, this has to be here and this has to be here, and I'm going to make sure that this and this and this goes together the right way, right? That's being a manager. You're managing the people. You're managing what is actually the product of what's going out, right? And I see that different when it comes to leadership, right? Leadership, the definition, the sum of those qualities of intellect, human understanding, and moral character that enables a person to inspire and to control a group of people successfully. I mean, inspire and control, those are two incredibly powerful words. And and it's all about trying to get people, some people trying to get people to do what they don't want to do, even, and try to inspire them to do those things. And partly, in order to get people inspired, people have to believe in you. They have to believe in the individual. And in order to do that, you have to show that individual that you care about them. You care about the things that are happening in their individual life. What's going on? What's going on at home? What's going on at work? What's their life goals? You have to have mentor sessions. You have to sit down. You have to do all these things with them. And then you start to gain their trust, right? They're always going to respect the rank. 9 times out of 10, they're going to respect the rank, and they're going to do what you tell them to do because of the ranks. But that doesn't always mean they're going to do it out of respect. They're going to be upset about it. They're going to, they're not going to like it, those types of things. But you have to be able to show them that you care about them. And then eventually, by you showing that you care about them, they're eventually going to come on your side. And when you tell them something that may be out of the norm, but you need them to do it, they're not going to question it as much. And they're going to say, hey, I know this guy's looking out for my best interest. And so that's what you're going to do. And they're going to do their best. And they may not have all the information, all the background behind what's going on, but they're still going to do it because they trust you. They actually know you care about them and you want what's best for the individuals. So that's the number one thing. Genuinely care about the people. And sometimes that's difficult, especially somebody that that maybe is getting in trouble, somebody that's doing things they're not supposed to do. And you have to be firm, right? You have to be firm, fair, and consistent across the board. So if somebody messes up, well, you got to be firm with them and say, hey, you screwed up. You got to be consistent. You got to make sure you hold them to the same standards. You don't change those standards around just because you might like this person or you may not. It doesn't matter. You hold everybody to the same standard. Firm, fair. You got to be fair across the board, and that consistency. And if you get all of those things and you show them that you care about them, even if it is that turd and you're looking out for them, because typically when an individual screws up, there's a reason behind it. Most of the time there's something going on behind the scenes that got in their way, that caused them to be lacking a little bit, and maybe their head wasn't in the game, but there's a reason for that. And somehow, some way, you've got to figure out that reason. One of the easiest things you can ever do, and to show people that you care, and it's a check on people too. So as one of the senior enlisted at my last unit, and I do this everywhere I was before, even before I was the senior enlisted. But I walk around and I try to give a positive greeting. I try to be motivated. I say, "Hey, motivator, how you doing? What's going on today? You doing okay?" And then I gauge their reactions. I'm constantly watching, so I try to address just about as many people as I can going down the hallway. And as I do that, I'm listening, I'm watching, because a lot of times an individual, oh yeah, I'm motivated, oh yeah, hoorah, and all that type of stuff, right? They're excited, and then all of a sudden they're not one day, and you go, something's off. I don't know what it is exactly, because I'm not that person, I'm not close to that person, but I can recognize that something is off. Well, at that point, you don't personally have to go figure it out, but you have to find somebody that they confide in, that they trust in, and ask them to go find out. Because the main thing is you got to show that person that you care and that you're there for them. Sometimes it's as easy as, hey, if you ever need to talk, I'm sorry you're feeling down, but you ever need to talk, come and talk to me, and actually be there for them when they come and talk to you. You That's one way that you show that you care. And I know it's difficult. You sit in an office sometimes and you've got stuff to do as a staff NCO or an officer or anything like that. And then somebody knocks on the door and you're like, man, I've got to get this done, but as a leader, your job is never done, especially when you're leading people, because it can be in the middle of the night. It could be, during the workday when you're trying to get your stuff done, and then it just didn't happen all day, and then you got to stay late to get your stuff done. But that's part of leadership. That's showing somebody that you genuinely care. Now, is every day going to have to be a long day? No, absolutely not. Is every issue an issue that has to be taken care of right then? No, not at all. But those individuals, when they come in and say, okay, hey, what's going on? Gauge what it is. And if it's something that's immediate, it has to be taken care of right then. Okay, yeah, drop what you're doing. But if it's something that you're like, oh man, can we talk about this tomorrow morning? I'll schedule, 30 minutes. We can sit down and chat about it. A lot of times that's going to be enough. Just because you say, hey, I'm going to schedule out some time to actually sit down and chat with you. I don't have time right this second because I've got to get all this stuff done. And you be honest with them, tell them up front, But if you notice that this isn't a problem that has to be solved immediately right then, okay, well, schedule a time and come back to them and let them come in at a later date and then discuss what's going on and sit there and listen and try to be that voice of reason for them and give them solid, good advice on how to move forward, right? If that requires, hey, I may need to take this person to medical, maybe they're having a mental breakdown. It could be all kinds of different things, right? And that's not personal. If somebody's having a mental breakdown, you take them. One of the big things that I've seen throughout my career, and it's probably one of the, especially when we talk about veteran suicide, right? And even in the military, there's suicides, and when you're active duty, and a lot of young leaders shy away from that. Number one question that you got to ask them when they come in, right? They're upset, all kinds of stuff. But I never shied away from it. I just look at them and say, hey, do you want to hurt yourself? Do you want to kill yourself? Do you want to hurt or kill somebody else? And it's going to take them by surprise because nobody expects that question. Nobody expects it. Uh, but you got to come at it from that angle starting out, so you can gauge what it is you need to do in the future, right? And if that individual like looks at you and says, yeah, I have been thinking about that, then, oh yeah, okay, well, hey, that's a little beyond what I can handle. I don't have a good advice for that. I'm not a medical officer. I don't know how to do that, but let's go over to medical. I'll walk over with you. We'll go together, and you walk them through the process. Be there for them. And that's one of the things that as a leader, man, that's just what you got to do. You look out for the individual, whether it's a medical issue, whether it's a financial issue. If it's financials, hey, look, man, I'm not good with numbers. I'm horrible with numbers, but I know people that are good with it. There's organizations everywhere, and you say, hey, look, I can't do that, but I know somebody that can do that. And you take them over there and you show them where it is and you walk them through it and set them up for success, and have those individuals go through their finances, go through all the stuff that they need to go through to help that individual in the future. But it's small things like that. You show them that you genuinely care about them and what they have going on. That is the biggest thing that I see. All right, number two, friends and enemies. So everyone doesn't like it when I talk about this, but Sun Tzu said, you got to keep your friends close, but you got to keep your enemies closer. Well, why do you got to keep your enemies closer? You got to keep them closer so you know what they're doing. That way you can counter it and do whatever it is you need to do in the future, right? Moving forward. So, so as you're doing these things, and you're talking to people, right? You have to figure out, is this person a friend? Is this person an enemy? And I'll be honest, a friend and an enemy, a friend is just somebody that agrees with things that you're doing. That is somebody that is on your side when it comes to different things like that, right? That is just somebody that is there. What do you want? Okay, well, I'm doing a podcast, so you're gonna have to wait. So you look at enemies, right? And what is an enemy? That is somebody that is going against what it is you're trying to accomplish, right? It doesn't have to, like, the traditional thought of friends is, I have friends that are close to me, and we're always together, we're always having fun, and that's what everybody thinks of as a friend. And then they think of an enemy as, like, a combatant, somebody that we're going to war with and things like that. But the reality is, at any given point in time, there's one individual could be your friend, and then that same individual can be your enemy. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you look at a friend and you say, hey, or you look at somebody in your unit, you say, hey, this is what we got to do, right? Well, there's going to be people that agree with you. Well, at that point in time, those people are your friends, right? But there's also going to be people that disagree with you. So at that point, what do you got to do? Well, you got to keep those ones that were your enemy close to you, closer than your friends, because you need to know what they're thinking. Why are they thinking that way? Is there any way you can help influence, right? Inspire or control them to get them to think the way you want them to do? So, and that individual, like, one day you say, hey, this is what we need to do. And it could be your best friend in the whole world, right? I've worked with my best friend in the whole world. And sometimes we were like this. We knew everything, right? We were 100% together. And there were times where we were not 100% together. So when we were 100% together, guess what? We were friends. But the second that he's thinking something different than me, okay, now we're enemies. So now I got to pull him in closer and figure out why. Why is it he's thinking that way? Is there any way I can influence him to start to see it my way? Right. And that's the big things with friends and enemies. And yes, everybody's going to have traditional friends, but you need to kind of take it and look at a bigger picture, right? When we're talking friends, we're not talking like your best friends in the world that you hang out with all the time and that you go places with and that you love. And, we're talking about in a work environment, right? In a military environment, right? Your friends are people that agree with you. Your enemies are people that disagree with you. Now, there is the traditional enemy, right? The people that want to blow you up, the people that want to shoot you, the people that want to kill you. Those are traditional enemies. And those people, guess what? Yes, close with and destroy. By all means, do that. But in the context of what I'm talking about, that's not it. You're just trying to be a good leader. You're trying to influence what's going on. You're trying to inspire them to see things your way and move them in the direction you need them in. So that's what I talk about when I say friends and enemies. I don't know. Some people do not like me saying that, but that's just my opinion. That's just how I see it. For those that don't like that, I'm sorry. But hey, this is just Krusty Master Gunny talking here, so no big deal. All right, the next thing I'm going to talk about, everybody's going to love this one. I'm going to talk about the turd. And every unit's got it. Every unit has got that one, maybe two, sometimes three and four, depending on the size of the unit. But everybody has that turd, right? That individual that just is going to complain about everything. It doesn't matter what it is. That person is just the one that's going to complain. He's going to go against the grain no matter what. And I call him the turd, right? That's not the politically correct thing. And da 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 da. I got it. Okay. Maybe it's the complainer for those that don't like the term turd. But when you look at that and you look at that individual, and there's a reason that individual is thinking that way. And I don't care what anyone says. Honestly, I don't care. The turd is one of the natural born leader. They're natural at it. They don't even realize that they're doing it half the time, but they have a way to influence people to see it their way and to do things that way. That way they're getting people on the negative side of things. So they're looking at the negative, right? They're getting them all on that negative side. Well, how do you influence somebody that's like that? Man, not always easy, but I will tell you, I will go to the turd. If I have a difficult thing and I know that people aren't going to buy into it 100%, the turds are one of the first people that I go to. Why? Because I know they're going to be straight shooters. They're going to listen and they're going to be like, nah, I don't agree with it. And then you got to figure out why they don't agree with it. And then you go back and you say, okay, well, talk to me about it. Why do you not agree with it? What is this? What is that? They're going to be straight shooters with you. They're going to be honest with you. And they're going to tell you things that you don't want to hear. And that's a tough pill to swallow. I don't know, care who you are. If you're a leader out there and somebody is honest and tells you stuff that makes you bad, makes you look bad, man, it's not a good day. It is not pleasant. But you have to be able to open yourself up to it and accept that criticism for what it is. Maybe it's something you can fix in yourself later down the road. Or maybe that's just who you are, and that's just, one of the things that you have to deal with and know that people don't like about you. But you get that turd in there and you ask them those questions and you listen and you try to figure out a way. How is it that I can get this person on my side? Right. And if you can figure that out, if you can figure out how to get the turd on your side, then everybody else in the unit, they're going to have to go along with it. Why? Because the turd's going along. The one that is always complaining, he's the one that's actually buying into what you got going on. This is something that I would do. And this is the example I give to people. It's very crude, very simplistic in nature, but you can apply it to everything that you do. So I'm a leader within this unit. I get told, hey, look, your unit's going to have to eat a shit sandwich. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't want to eat a shit sandwich. This is ridiculous. Why would I voluntarily eat a shit sandwich? Well, I know that it's going to happen. And dang, okay, I got to tell my unit that we got to eat a shit sandwich. And as a leader, I have to inspire them to want to eat this shit sandwich with me, right? So how do you do that? Well, I can tell you what I do. I go and find that turd and I pull that turd in. And sometimes honesty is just the best policy. You pull that individual in and you say, hey, look, I'm going to be honest with you. You're the biggest complainer. You are the one that is going to disagree with everything that's going on. And they're going to be like, no, I don't do that. Look, let's just be honest with each other. You do. You look for the negative in everything. And they're going to see it. They may not like it, but they're going to see it. And you're going to tell them, I need your help. And they're going to look at you strange and be like, what? You need my help? Why do you need my help? And you're going to sit there and you're going to say, look, I have something that the unit's going to have to do. And it is something that not everybody's going to like. And, but we're going to have to do it. And if I can get you to agree to it, and in fact, be the first one to go in and take a bite, then there is nobody else in the unit that's going to complain because you're the biggest complainer. And when they see you doing it, they're going to be like, oh, dang, I got to do this. So you explain to them, hey, this is what we got to do. We got to take a bite, or we got to eat this shit sandwich. And we're all going to share the load. We're all going to eat some of it. But I need you to take the first bite. You need to be the first one to volunteer to say, hey, look, I'll be the first one to step up and take a bite of that shit sandwich. So you get the whole group together. And then you say, hey, everybody, we're going to eat this shit sandwich. And everybody's going to look around and be like, what? We're going to eat a shit sandwich? This is ridiculous. Why would we do that? And I said, I'm going to need a volunteer. Somebody's going to have to take the first bite. And then all of a sudden, the turd raises his hand, says, hey, I'll take the first bite. And everyone in the room is going to look around like, oh my God, the biggest complainer, the one that goes against the grain with every single thing that happens, is saying he's going to take the first bite. Well, there's no way that I'm going to not take a bite. I'm not going to let the turd of the unit outshine me. That's not going to happen. So, of course, I'm going to take a bite. And that's what's going to happen. And it makes it easier to get that thing accomplished, even though it's something that nobody in the unit wants to do. Right. And now I'm using the term of a shit sandwich. Maybe it has to do with, hey, there's a certain hill that you have to attack. And it's chock full of the enemy, and you're just going to get mowed down. But you gotta figure out a way. Maybe that's the way. Maybe that's the way to get them on your side and get them to do what it is that they don't want to do. Right? Leadership 101. So the turd, very important person in the unit, and you need to take that person in. You need to listen to what they have to say. They're going to be honest with you. Accept what they're saying, because there's truth behind it. And a lot of people don't tell you the truth. When you're in a leadership position, not everybody's going to tell you the truth. In fact, a lot of people want you to fall on your face. Why? So they can get in that position eventually. But listen to them. They're going to be good to you. It's just one of those things, All right, number 4. This is another thing that everybody gets upset about when I talk about it and everything, but enthusiasm. You got to be excited about what you do. You got to be excited about the tasks. No matter what the task is, you got to be excited about it, because there's a couple things that happen if you put enthusiasm into what's going on around you. One, it builds your spirit up a little bit and makes things less negative, right? And when you're enthusiastic and when you're having fun and you're joking and you're, being a little lighthearted about things, well, the people around you will actually start to build on that. They'll start to join in on that, right? So the more enthusiastic you are, the more people will join in, because they want to have fun too. And that's one way that you can utilize enthusiasm. But it needs to be natural enthusiasm, not the false motivation, right? Everybody talks about false motivation. That's not what I'm talking about. Be enthusiastic in the sense of, yeah, this sucks, but you know what? We're going to do it, right? Everybody goes out to the field and you're soaking wet and it's freezing cold and miserable. But some people just have fun doing it. And you look at them and you're like, how in the world are you having fun doing this? It's in here. It's a mentality that you have to take. And you just say, hey, look, I'm going to have fun. It doesn't matter how horrible it is, how incredibly stupid it is. I'm going to have fun doing it, because it's better to have fun than be miserable. And that's the way I look at it. You have to have that enthusiasm. And, I've always heard this, and I always say it to my Marines, right? Laughter shared is laughter multiplied, right? Or in this way, in this sense, is enthusiasm shared is enthusiasm multiplied. But what am I saying whenever I say that? It spreads, right? When I get excited about something, then that makes somebody else excited about it, and then it just kind of starts spreading. And then we're all having fun, and we're all just, hey man, this is exciting stuff, and we're going and we're doing and all kinds of stuff. But laughter shared is laughter multiplied. Well, on the flip side, when you look at the negative side of things, right, it too can spread. So it's better to be enthusiastic and try to get more people to be enthusiastic, because I got to be honest, that negative stuff, it spreads quick. It spreads real quick, and you got to be careful about it, right? That's why you try to keep the turd on your side. You try to keep those that are always going against their grain. You try to keep them in your hip pocket, and you try to know what it is that they're thinking and why they're thinking that way. That way you can help combat and come up with new ways to do it, right? But you can't let that spread, so enthusiasm is a great tool. And when you walk around, and like what I would do, like I told you earlier, I walk around and say, hey, good morning, how you doing? And I try to stay motivated and all that. I'll be honest, not every day do you feel that way. Not every day do you feel enthusiastic. Not every day are you motivated. uh it's not life, and we all have to be realistic in that. But sometimes you got to fake it till you make it, because as a leader, it's not about you. It's not about the leader. It's about who you're leading. So if something bad happens to me at home, yes, it affects me. It affects everybody, right? But when I go in, I still have to set that aside, and I have to somehow be that motivated individual. I have to somehow be enthusiastic. I have to get those people excited about what they're doing that day. Or everyone suffers because you're in a bad mood. And we all know that if a leader's in a bad mood, then everyone below them, yeah, it's like a snowball, right? When it rolls downhill, what's it do? It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, man, that poor guy, low man on the totem pole, man, all he is getting is a big snowball full of shit. And it just plows him over. Bam. So those at the top, you have to figure out a way to be enthusiastic, right? You have to figure out a way to motivate. You got to figure out those things, because your bad days can't affect everyone around you. Now, reality is it's going to. No matter who you are, everyone has bad days, and sometimes there's no hiding it. It's just what it is. And sometimes just be honest. I said that earlier. Honesty is the best policy. Maybe walk in one day and say, hey, look, I had a really bad day at home, and things are not going well. But I'm here for you guys. I need you to motivate me. I need somebody to come through for me. And somebody will, especially if you're that guy, you're that one that's always giving them enthusiasm. They're going to somehow motivate you, and you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how quickly they can motivate you. And a lot of times you just got to talk to somebody. Sometimes you just got to unload your feelings. And we as military, we don't like to show our weaknesses, but sometimes you got to. Sometimes you got to go to somebody and just unload. Let them know how you're feeling. Right? Laughter shares, laughter multiplied. So maybe laugh back and forth, but pain shared is pain divided, right? What do I mean by that? Well, if I go in and I talk to somebody, I'm going to start talking, and I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. Well, by the time I finish talking to that individual, it's like that individual took half of the weight that was on my shoulders and is now on their shoulders. That person could have sat there and not said a word, just sat there and nodded their head in agreement as I was just going off about everything wrong in my life. And when I walk out of the room, they don't do anything, not a damn thing. But it's like half of the weight that was on my shoulders that I was burdened down with is now on somebody else too. Somebody else is at least feeling and seeing what it is I'm going through. So that's why it's important to talk, right? And you look at, especially in the military, right? You got to take these guys that have the weight of the world on their shoulders, that are holding it in and they're not talking to anybody, and then you deploy with them. And now more weight. What's going to happen? Eventually, that person's going to cave. Eventually, that something's going to happen negative, and it's going to either get them killed or get somebody around them killed. I mean, that's the bottom line, especially in the military. Now, us as veterans may be a little bit different, but it's still important, right? Because somebody is going to feel that somehow, some way. So it's better to talk to somebody and let it out. Pain shared is pain divided. Laughter shared is laughter multiplied. Enthusiasm, got to have it, right? All right. Let's talk about acceptance of failure, learning from your mistakes. Man, it's the one thing that we all don't want to do is fail. But we all have to realize that no matter what, you're going to fail. Everyone fails. Everyone screws up. Everyone comes short. At some point in time, it's going to happen. Some more than others, but it's still going to happen. And those that it doesn't happen to very often typically have a harder time with it. Why? Because they don't typically do that. They don't know how to handle that stress. And somebody that fails all the time, they're just used to it. They're like, oh, well, another ass chewing. I'm going to move on, right? But sometimes your best performers, when they fail at something, it's like they spiral and they just go down. But you have to accept that you are going to fail. I don't care who you are. I failed so many times in my military career, 25 years, and I'm sure I failed at something every single day. 25 years worth of failing. Now, was I successful? Absolutely. Yeah, I made it to E9, 25 years. Yeah, of course I was successful, but that doesn't mean that I didn't fail at things. The big thing is I learned from those failures. What do I mean by that? Well, when I made a mistake and when I failed at something, I said, okay, how did I fail? Why did I fail? And I would evaluate that. And then I would say, okay, how am I going to do it in the future where that doesn't happen again? And then do everything in my power to do it differently. That way I don't fail in the future. And I don't fail at the same thing over and over and over and over by doing the same stuff over and over and over. That's insanity, right? I think that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and over, right? Yeah, don't do that. That's just crazy. Don't do it. When you fail at something, you have to take it and analyze it and figure out what it is that you did wrong. Why did you fail? And then at that point, okay, now I can move on in the future and not make the same mistakes. Now, does that mean you're going to make the same mistakes? Yeah, you probably will at some point in time. And some people, it's harder to learn than others. Me, for example, sometimes it took me 2 or 3 times to learn something. Other people, maybe it just takes them once. Maybe they're smarter. And that's okay. But we all got to know that as we're moving forward in life, we are going to make mistakes. We're going to fail at something. We just hope that we're able to adapt and be able to move on and learn from that mistake and be able to in the future do even better, and not have that failure on us. And if you do that, your leaders are going to recognize that you don't continue to do the same stuff over and over and over, right? It's going to be one of those things that they recognize. Oh man, he screwed that up, but I still trust him because he's going to learn from that. He's going to do better in the next one, and they're still going to put their faith in you. And that's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you do things, right? In order to grow, in order to learn more, you have to fail at something. And when you fail, don't look at it as the end of the world, because it's not. You failed. It's okay. Why did you fail? How can you improve? How can you do better? And then you go and do better. But failing is part of becoming great. Think of all the greatest men and women in this world, maybe the richest, the most successful, the whatever it is you want to say, right? How many of them failed at things? You take big CEOs and stuff that's been there. How many times did they fail before they made it there? And I would venture to say they probably failed way more than you and I have failed. Why? Because they are extremely successful. They've adapted, they've overcome, they've put those mistakes behind them, learned from them, and moved forward. Yeah, billionaires, do you think that they were always successful? No, I guarantee you they lost all kinds of money. They probably lost more money than they have, but they pushed on. When they would fail and lose some money, they'd say, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to do that again. And they move and go in a different direction. And then they would gain more money. And that's how we have to look at it. We have to accept that failure. We have to know that failure is going to happen. And you just got to learn from it, right? Just got to learn from it. All right, let's talk about accountability. Accountability. Wow. Who are you accountable to? Or what are you accountable to? Well, in the Marine Corps, you're accountable to the Marines around you, right? You're accountable to the Marine Corps and their standards, the honor, courage, commitment, those types of things. Your soldier, you're accountable to the soldiers around you. You're accountable to your creed, right? Those things that the Army finds most important and most valuable, right? We have to be accountable to somebody. Most importantly, you got to be accountable to yourself. That's one of the hardest individuals to be accountable to, because we all say, "Oh no, I can put that off." No, yeah, I know I'm supposed to do this, but I'm just gonna push it off a little bit. The hardest thing is to tell yourself, "No, self, that's not gonna happen. We're gonna accomplish this right now. We're gonna get it done. I'm holding myself accountable into getting this done when it's supposed to be done." And that's tough. Man, that was one of the hardest things that I had. I could force people to do whatever and this and that. It's just a matter of me sitting down and doing it. I'll give you a good example. Every year we got to do the online training. Man, I hated that stuff. I still hate online training. I hate any type of thing like that. I'm not a fan. It's not hard. It's just time consuming. And I didn't like doing it. But I would make sure everybody was getting their stuff done. What did I do? I put it off until the very last second. And then I would cram and put them all in and try to get them all knocked out right before the end of the year. And then have to stay late, have to do these things that I didn't have to do if I'd have just done a little bit at a time throughout the year. Did I do that? No, because I wasn't accountable to myself. Man, and that's it's bad to go. Can't do that. You got to hold yourself to the same standard that you're going to hold everybody else to. And that was one area that I struggled with. I mean, hardcore struggle with. But I was able to overcome it eventually and be able to get through it. I figured out ways to be able to do a little bit at a time, right? Schedule it into my day or whatever the case may be. But I held myself accountable, and it got better at it as time went on. Was I perfect? No, not by any stretch of the imagination was I perfect. But accountability and responsibility, right? What are we responsible to, man, or what are we responsible for? And you got to know that, right? And when you take on a new job, what's my responsibilities? It's so important. You have to have a sit down with your boss, whoever your direct leader is, and say, what am I responsible for? Because if you don't know what you're responsible for and you just guess, I guarantee you're going to mess it up. It's guaranteed, unless you're just one heck of a guesser. And that could happen. It happens every now and again. But me, no, I needed to know. So I'd have those sit downs. I'd say, hey, look, you need to tell me, what am I responsible for? Who am I accountable to? What is it that you need done? And what are my roles within that? Right? We have to be able to know who to hold accountable, whether that's yourself or somebody else, right? And what are we responsible for? Right? If I'm trying to do something that third squad is supposed to be doing, but I'm in first squad, well, first squad's not supposed to be doing that. Why would I be doing that? It's not my responsibility. It's their responsibility. How about I concentrate on what my responsibilities are? Because if everybody does that and we all come together and each one of us have our own responsibility, well, guess what? If we hold up our responsibility, then the mission can continue. But the second that we fold, then somebody else has to cover down on our responsibility. And now we're spread loading, which is what you don't want. So you gotta take it for what it is. Figure out what you're accountable to, who you're accountable to, what you're responsible for. That's number 6. All right, number 7. This one's kind of short and sweet, to the point, to be honest with you. But decisions, man, decisions. I don't know how many times that I've been somewhere and, the leadership is like, well, I don't know what to do, or, what we got to wait until so-and-so does this or is that. And it's like, just make a decision, man. Tell me what it is we need to do so I can get it done, so we can go home and so we can enjoy the weekend or whatever the case is. But somebody make a dadgum decision. It's ridiculous. And it was one of the things that just drove me nuts. And so whenever I got into leadership positions, I told myself, no, I'm going to make a decision, because no decision, you're not going to get anywhere with that. But if you make a decision, because a decision is better than no decision, at least you're moving. At least you're going somewhere and you're doing something. It may be the wrong thing, but it's easier to take everybody and say, oh, shoot, we're not supposed to be doing this. We're supposed to be over here. So let's shift fire and move in this direction now. It's much easier to do that than it is to, okay, I'm sitting here and I'm waiting for somebody to make a decision of how am I going to attack this thing. And I'm waiting, but the enemy is coming closer and closer and closer and closer. So by the time they finally make that decision, it's too late, because you can't do anything. It's too much firepower on you. You can't make a move. So what do? Ah, man. You make a decision and you run, and you hope that it's the best decision. But you make the best decision you can with the information that you're given, and the most timely manner that you can do it. But you got to make decisions. And if you're a leader out there and you don't like making decisions, you're going to struggle, because waiting and waiting and waiting, you're just screwing things up and making it harder for yourself whenever the decision does come down. And I'll be honest, you're going to make decisions that are boneheaded. You're going to make decisions that just make people mad. Why did you do this? And they'll chew you out one side down the other and just completely annihilate you because you made a wrong decision. It happens. But the most important thing in that, you made a decision. And when you make that mistake, because it was the wrong decision, what do? You adapt, right? You learn from that mistake and you move in a new direction the next time. But I'll be honest. Like when I was a senior enlist, I tell students this all the time, man. Ass chewings, I'd much rather have an ass chewing than paperwork any day of the week. Because an ass chewing, it comes and goes. It's just somebody upset in a moment and they're just voicing their frustration. That's all that is. Where if it's paperwork, that's going to hang out with you for a while. But an ass chewing, it's like water off a duck's back, right? You see a duck, he's swimming along the water, he's doing his thing. He goes underwater, he comes back up. Well, what happens to all the water that's on him? All of that just beads off his back. Doesn't affect him one little bit. Nothing. And that's what an ass chewing is. You get your ass chewed, you go, oh, shoot. I, whoever it is, and you say, I apologize, I won't make that mistake again. And then you walk out the door, and don't let that ass chewing affect you. Don't walk out the door and go, man, that was bull crap and blah, 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 blah. No. Accept an ass chewing for what it is. Somebody upset in a moment letting you know how they feel. That's all it is. Learn from it. Learn from your mistake. Learn from that decision, the bad decision that you made, and go, I'm not going to make that decision again. I'm going to be wiser in the future and make a different decision. But I'm still going to make a decision, because that's the important part. In the absence of orders, you make a damn decision and you move. Just got to make them. So make decisions, right? That's number 7. Make decisions. Number 8, planning. Woo, man, people have a hard time with this one. Planning. Sometimes You got to sit down. You got to figure out the who, the what, the when, the why, the where, right? You got to sit down and put all that together, and you got to plan it out. Sometimes you got to plan out your day, right? I used to use the Franklin Covey, thanks to Master Gunny Boat, right? That's out there. He taught me how to use the Franklin Covey planner, and I every second of the day was, hey, I'm going to do this from this time, and then okay, these are the tasks that I have to do for the day, and then okay, these tasks I wasn't able to get to, so I'm going to push them to the next day. Like I was so like ingrained into planning, and there's a time and a place for that, right? If I'm in garrison and I can plan and do things because my schedule is so set, right? That's that's good. And you have to be, well thought out plans. You have to have everything in place, right? If I'm taking a unit on a trip somewhere, I have to make sure that there's food. You got to think about that. You got to think about gas. You got to think about transportation. You got to think about every step along the way, from hotels, and then when you get there, and then how are you going to eat when you're there, and then what are the meeting times, and this and that, and then hey, I got to get back. How do I get back? What's the overall plan? And I put together this big detailed plan about a trip. But you have to be able to plan those things. Well, how do you plan? Well, you have to know, one, what's the end goal? That's the most important, right? What is the mission? All right. Well, if the mission is to do something on a said date that's 3 months from now, well, now I got to do what I call back planning. It's not what I call it. It's what somebody else called it. I'm just utilizing it. But you got to back plan. You have to say, okay, if this is the deadline, right? Then I know that by this date, I need to have all of these things done. And then you go back. Okay, by this date, I need to have all these things done. And then you just kind of go backwards in time to where you are. And then you say, okay, these are all my milestones to be able to get me to where I need to be for mission day. And that's how you plan things out. But you have to plan. But I'll tell you, you can't take too long in planning, because sometimes, like I was talking before, a decision, you got to make a decision. And everything is dictated by time, right? If I have 3 months to do something, then I can plan a little bit longer. But if I have 24 hours to do something, my planning process has changed dramatically. So I have to do it very fast and make decisions, the best decision I can based on the information that I have. It's not going to be the same decisions you'd make if it was a 3 month long process. And you have to realize that. But you have to make those decisions, right? But planning, you got to be able to plan things. And you got to know that some plans are going to go fast and some plans are going to go slow. But the important thing is to sit down and plan things out. I wouldn't have made it where I was if I didn't plan things. I planned things like uh, when I was going to go to my career course, when I was going to go to the different academies to be able to further help myself with promotions. When was I going to become go to a B billet and be a drill instructor, that way to help me in promotions? How was I going to be set myself up for leadership within a unit to be able to do these different things? Like, I was constantly planning out my career, right? Because nobody cares more about you than who? You. Nobody's going to care more about you than yourself. So plan everything out. If you can plan it, plan it. Have short-term goals, have midterm goals, have long-term goals. But you have to have plans as you're moving forward in life. All right, number 9, principles, ethos, and values. Those are so important to everything that we do. The Marine Corps does a fantastic job. I think all the branches of service do, but I can speak wholeheartedly on the Marine Corps, right? The Marine Corps values, right? Honor, courage, commitment. There's so much thought that goes into that, right? The leadership traits, the leadership principles, those types of things is what makes Marines better, makes Marines ethically better, right? And we try to hold ourselves to those standards. Well, you have to have those same type of standards, whether you're in the military or not. If you're a veteran out there, you have to have a set of values that you will abide by, and you have to remind yourself of, right? You have to have a set of principles, a set of ethos, something that's going to point you in the right direction, the direction that you want to go, but it's those values that are going to keep you going, right? Maybe it's biblical principle. Maybe it's, what you learn in the Marine Corps. Maybe it's what you learn in your branch of service. But you have to have something, and you have to hold yourself accountable to that, right? We talked about accountability. I would tell people this, right? You can lie to everybody else, but who's the one person that you can never lie to? That's right. It's yourself. You can't lie to yourself. So every day, right? Every day, talk about a principle, or go through your day thinking about a principle. Go through your day thinking about a value. Go through your day thinking about something like that. And as you go through your day, apply it to every single thing that you do, right? If I want to apply honor, I want to put honor into everything that I do throughout that day. And at the end of the day, you look yourself in the mirror and you say, Self, did I do everything? But when you're looking at yourself, you can't lie to yourself. No, I didn't make it. I wasn't able to do it. Well, that's okay. Beat yourself up a little bit, slap yourself around, and then get past it and say, okay, well, tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to pick another one. And you pick something else and you go and you do it again. And you just repeat them and you go every single day and you just try to get better and better and better. Because you can't lie to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Now, I failed today. Remember? It's okay to fail. We're all going to do it. I failed every single day. And I'm still failing every single day. That's something. Nobody's perfect. All right, that was principles, ethos, values. All right, performance. This is number 10, performance evals and welfare checks. So performance evals, incredibly important, right? You have to know, as an individual within a unit, as an individual within a company, whatever it is, you have to know if what you're doing is up to snuff, right? It's what is needed, and it's where it needs to be, right? So who is it that does these performance evaluations? Well, it's whoever your next supervisor is, whoever your next leader is, right, in the chain of command or whatever it is, right? Those people should be sitting down with you, and they should be telling you, hey, look, this was the mission, and this is what you did. This is how I evaluate you. I think you could have screwed this up. You could have done this better. You do this way, this, that. You did this really well. You did this really well. But you got to go through there and you got to do that, right? But sometimes that's a daily thing, right? Maybe it's maybe it's a every mission thing. Maybe it's you go out on you go out for one event and come back, and then, okay, hey, I got to go for another event on the same day. But you do an evaluation check, right? A performance evaluation, and then you go push out for the next one. Maybe it's a weekly thing. Maybe it's a monthly thing. But the big thing is you got to sit down and you got to do that. Now, you as a leader, it's important that you're doing that for those that are under you. And you got to make sure that they know that you as a leader are watching, you're evaluating, you're trying to make them better, right? That goes back to that whole genuinely care thing. I want to genuinely care about that person, so I know, or they know, that I'm looking out for their best interest. So maybe I have to chew their ass, maybe I have to talk sternly, maybe I have to let them know how important something was. But that doesn't mean it's over, right? It doesn't mean that their career is over. No, it means they made a mistake and they're going to move on and they're going to learn from it, right? That's what you're trying to push, and that's what you're trying to teach. And then welfare checks. It's like I was talking about when I'm walking down the hallway, I'm checking on people. Sometimes the welfare checks are more in depth than others. You stop somebody, hey, stop, have a conversation with me. How are things going? How is school? How is this? How is that? How's the wife? How's the kids? And you go down the list of all the different things that you know about the individual. And then you have those conversations, and now you're just doing checks on them. Hey, is everything okay? How is you good financially? Are you good this? You good that? You kind of dig a little bit and you have those conversations, right? You don't have them so you hold stuff over their head and you tell them how horrible they are. That's not why you're doing it. You're doing it to see if you can help them. If you can take some of that stress that they have, right? Take it off their shoulders. That way they can concentrate more on whatever mission that's going on. So, but yeah, those welfare checks, very important as well. But yeah, you gotta go out there and do those evals on those that are under you. You gotta go out and do those welfare checks, and hope to God that somebody above you is doing that for you, right? You can look at the veteran community, right? We're no longer bound by the Marine Corps or the Army or the Navy or whatever their regulations. But that doesn't mean you stop caring about people, right? You should always reach out, ask them how they're doing. I mean, we look at veteran suicide, 22 a day. That's a humongous number. And sometimes all it takes is one person to reach out and say, "Hey, how you doing? I love you. I hope you're doing well." Sometimes that's all it takes. Those are those welfare checks, right? For me, I try to make contact with everybody that I'm friends with on Facebook at least one time a year. What's the easiest way to do that? Guess what? Birthdays. And I don't send it out on their page or anything like that. I try to, hey, I'm sending a message to you personally and saying happy birthday, and then I ask, hey, how you doing, or something like that. Sometimes it's just a happy birthday, but you never know where that's going to go, right? There's so many times that somebody reached back out, hey, thanks for doing that. I really appreciate it. Things have been tough and da da da. And then it starts a dialogue, it starts that conversation. And now you're taking some of the weight from somebody else. And hopefully somebody's doing that for you, right? But we always want to look out for those that are around us, right? It gives you something to look forward to and something to do when you maybe don't have anything to do and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do today. Well, hey, reach out to your buddies. Ask them how they're doing. Can't hurt. Maybe they reach back out and you guys end up doing something cool together. Who knows? Anything can happen. But you got to do those welfare checks. You got to do the performance evaluations when you're in charge of somebody. All right, number 11. It's getting pretty long-winded, isn't it? That's all right. Still going. Number 11. You got to play your role. Man, play your role. What in the world is he talking about? We're not doing theater. I don't understand. Why is he talking about playing your role? Well, you got to know what your role is, right? We talked about that a little bit earlier. Somebody's got to be able to tell you what you're responsible for, who you're responsible to, what you're accountable for, those types of things, right? Just relentlessly holding everybody accountable and just, hey, I'm forcing every rule and I'm making sure that that's all happening, right? We call it in the Marine Corps, those are the NCOs, non-commissioned officers. Those are the guys that are the pit bulls, right? They're the rules, the regulations, and they're the ones that are always hammering that home, right? And that's what you want. You want those guys doing that, right? But you got to know your role. And your role can change depending on what your job is within a unit. If I'm a squad leader, my role is going to be different than if I'm a fire team leader. If I'm a senior enlisted, is going to be different than if I was a junior enlisted. So you got to know what your role is, and sometimes your role changes. I remember the hardest role that I had to do was be a drill instructor, because naturally that is not me. I, I, I was not just natural at being a hole all the time. And that was hard. So that transition and me learning my role was incredibly difficult. Did I do it? Yeah, of course I did. I adapted. I overcame. Did I make mistakes? Yeah, plenty of mistakes. I made lots of them. But I learned from them, and I was able to push on, and I did very well while I was out there. I was able to finish as a senior drill instructor. I really enjoyed my time and learned a lot. The best, worst 3 years of my life. That's what I like to say. But then when I was leaving there, I got a call and they were like, "Hey, do you want to go to Camp Lejeune? That's where this individual was going." I was like, "Oh, it's back to division. Yeah, sure, I'll go there." And he goes, "Well, I need a pit bull. I need a kind of the asshole of the unit." And I was like, "Well, I've had 3 years of practice, so sure, okay." So when I walked into that unit, I knew day one that my job was to be the enforcer. That was my job. Now, that was a lot of responsibility because a lot of stuff fell on my shoulders, but I knew I was the pit bull. I was the one that had to make sure everything, was being done the right way and holding people accountable and chewing them out when they needed it and those types of things. That was me. And I knew that walking in. Then I left there. I went to a schoolhouse and I knew my role was completely different. Now my role is to mentor, to guide, to teach, and do these other things that wasn't exactly the same role. Doesn't mean you don't do those things. It's just you got to know what your role is in whatever organization you're in. If you don't know what your role is, you should ask, what's my role? What is it that you want me to be here? And then you go play that role. It's kind of like acting, right? And here's a good example, right? People that play the role really well. think back to, long time ago when they paint their faces, but they paint a big smile, right? So people in the back of the audience could see it and stuff like that, right? Um, they played their role so well by painting such a big smile that the people in the back knew that that person was happy, right? Knew that person was a happy individual, right? But you gotta know what that role is, and you gotta be able to project that to everybody. And you're gonna struggle sometimes at some of the roles that you're put in, and it's tough. And you got to be able to adapt and be, you can't always be the teacher, you can't always be the mentor, you can't always be, but sometimes it requires it. So you have to be able to take one hat off, put a different hat on. Okay, now I'm being this. And that could come in a man, I've gone from chewing somebody out and all of a sudden they break down and now okay, whoop, okay, I gotta take that hat off, put this hat on, and now I'm a mentor. I'm mentoring them, right? And then I gotta put the now you're back in trouble hat on, and I say, hey, even though I mentored you and da 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 da, and okay, sometimes this all happens within the same conversation, but you got to be able to do that. You got to know what your role is, and you got to be able to play it. All right, number 12. Number 12. We're getting close. We're almost there. Number 12. I titled this "Get Off Your Ass." Um, there is something to be said about getting stuff done, and if you haven't figured it out yet, you can't do everything by yourself. It is impossible to get everything done by yourself. Uh, so, how do you do that? Well, I always tell people, if I shoot an email and I'm shooting it to a shop and I'm like, hey, look, this is what I need, da 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 da. Well, that email is real easy for me to say, no, sorry, can't help you. You're on your own. Why? There's no human interaction. It's just an email. So it's easy to say no to an email. People do it all the time. But if I pick up the phone and I'm talking to them on the phone, well, guess what? Now there's at least a voice of somebody, and I've got to be able to tell them no. And I'll be honest, most people don't like confrontation. I say 90% of people do not like confrontation. I kind of like it. I think it's fun. But if you don't like confrontation, 9 times out of 10, guess what you're going to do? You're going to fold. But if I hang up the phone and I get off my ass and I walk to wherever they are and I see them face to face, now think how much more difficult it is for them to tell you no. It's incredibly difficult. They can't. Well, they can, but it's difficult. So that's what I always say. Get off your ass. Go see people, right? Talk to them face to face, because typically speaking, you're going to be able to explain how important whatever it is you need done. And they're going, that human aspect is there, and they don't like the confrontation. They don't want to tell you no when you're standing in front of them. So they're going to be like, okay, fine. Yeah, I'll do it. So get off your ass. Go out there and do that. The other part of get off your ass is networking. If you're not networking, you are behind the Powerball here. You are behind the game. You got to be networking all the time. I would tell people, get off your butt, walk around. Go to the different shops, right? If I'm in a business building, go to the different aspects of the different floors, see what everybody does. Walk in and say, hey, look, how you doing? I'm Andrew from this section. I was just wondering, what do you guys do down here? I'm just curious. Start up a conversation, see what you have in common, right? Ask them simple things. Like if you have a hard time talking to people, well, come up with some very basic questions and stuff like that you can ask people, right? One of them is, hey, who's your favorite football team? They say, oh, Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, no kidding, Kansas City Chiefs. I like Kansas City Chiefs. And then you can start talking about Kansas City Chiefs. So now when you go back, you have something to talk about, right? Maybe you don't like the Chiefs, but you do some research on the Chiefs, because that individual at some point in time is going to have something that you need. And if you've made a friend, right, keeping your enemies closer, right? Keep your friends closer, your enemies closer. But that's a person that now is closer to you, because eventually you're going to need something from that shop. Well, now I can go back to them and I can have that conversation, and in the middle of it, be like, hey, look, I got tasked with doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. This kind of is in your wheelhouse. Can you give me some advice, some help? And they'll look at them, oh man, this is really easy. Look, I'll shoot you this document, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. And yeah, I'll walk you through it. Don't worry about it. Now you're getting something out of it. You networked. You found somebody that can do what it is that was asked of you. That doesn't mean let them do it all, but you figured out a way to get it done quicker, right? So now I always relate it to the young enlisted, right? So me as the Master Gunny, the Krusty Master Gunny, I come in and say, hey, look, this is what I need done. And then that person be like, oh, okay, good to go. So they walk out. Well, if they've been networking, they can get it done lickety split. And then they're back, right? They come back and they say, hey, Master Gunny, here's all your stuff. This is everything you asked for. And I'd look at them and, oh, wow, good job, man. That's great. I'd reach over. Here are two things. I need you to do these two things. Because what do we do? When somebody's doing really good, we want to challenge them. We want to see how far they can go before they have to tap out. Oh, here's three things, right? And we start stacking it on, and then we see, okay, where's their max? Oh, that's their max. Okay, now I'm going to back off a little bit. Now I have them at their ultimate where they need to be all the time, and I'm like, yeah. And eventually, maybe that increases. Now I'm getting more productivity. Maybe I'm getting more bang for my buck out of this individual, right? But it goes both ways. It's good for the leader and it's good for those that are being led. But yeah, get off your ass. Go out and make friends. Go out and talk to people. Network. Get off your ass and talk to them, because it's harder for them to tell you no when you're face to face with somebody. Very important. This is the last one, and this is the most important thing that I could probably come up with. It doesn't matter your job. It doesn't matter your MOS. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran, if you're active duty. It doesn't matter. Here's something I'm going to tell you. You have to have fun. That's right. Have fun. If you're not having fun, man, you're in the wrong business. Whatever it is you're doing, you need to get out of that and go into the business. Go into something that you can have fun in. But you can have fun everywhere, right? It's right here. It's a mentality. If you have the right mentality, you can have fun. But if it's something that I can't have fun here. I'm always constantly upset. I'm whatever. All right, well then you need to go find another job, right? And I tell people that were on to active duty that all the time. I was like, if you can't have fun while you're here doing this job, well then you need to get out, because Marine Corps is not for you. Go somewhere else, because you need to be able to have fun. And I think that's one thing that I did almost my entire 25-year career. I had fun. I had some hard times, don't get me wrong, but I had fun at it. And that's something that everybody needs to do. All right. Well, there's all my 13 lessons learned, if you want to say it that way, or leadership lessons learned from this Krusty Master Gunny. Last thing I want to talk about is I have a saying: stay motivated and change your socks. Where does that come from, and why do I say it? Well, stay motivated is something that we talked about, enthusiasm, right? It spreads, right? That enthusiasm. So if I'm always staying motivated and I remind everybody else, hey, stay motivated. No matter how bad it gets, stay motivated. Get excited. It's going to turn around. If I can remind people of that, then hopefully that spreads, right? Stay motivated. And then change your socks, right? Where does that come in? Well, hey, as you're on a hike, you get in the middle of that hike, you got to remember, hey, I got to change my socks out or I'm going to get blisters on my feet, right? I got to take care of myself. That's the basic gist of that. Take care of yourself, right? Sometimes that is I have to talk to somebody. Sometimes that is I need to go out and punch a punching bag for a while. Sometimes I need to go out and do a run. Sometimes I used to go outside and scream at the top of my lungs, right? But sometimes you got to talk to people, right? We discussed all this stuff, but that's why I say those things. Stay motivated and change your socks, right? Be excited about what you're doing every day and everything in life and all that stuff. And then take care of yourself at the same time. That's why I say still stay motivated and change your socks. All right. Hopefully this helps somebody out there. I don't know if it will, but hey, just something that this Krusty Master Gunny is now retired likes to say. And hopefully somebody out there can get something out of it. But if you're out there, you're struggling, need some help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies that you serve with, ask them how they're doing. If they need that helping hand, please give it to them. All right, with that, I want to say thanks. Thanks for joining if you made it this far. But as always, stay motivated, change your socks.